Hey guys, it's ErinJean. I am thrilled to take you on an intriguing journey today where we're going to explore the fascinating concept of walking on eggshells. Have you ever noticed how horror movies and sound scores can evoke distinct emotions in your body? Well, just like those eerie notes that send shivers down your spine, our relationships are often guided by subtle cues and unspoken dynamics. So, in today's episode, we're going to unravel the secrets behind those intricate psychological patterns that shape our interactions, whether you're navigating the twists and turns of a marriage or you're just seeking to enhance the vibrancy of your own life. I want you to stay tuned for some actionable advice that promises to illuminate your path to happiness and fulfillment. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Business of Inner Peace. I'm your host, ErinJean, and I'm so glad you're here. Let's pretend we're sitting in my living room enjoying a cup of coffee or tea and getting to know each other just a little better. That's what I love. I love getting to hear your story. I love feeling connected by the spirit of understanding that our stories bring. Today, I'm sharing some of my story, but I hope someday soon you'll be telling me yours. Listen, I know that you're feeling overwhelmed with life and nothing is exactly how you'd like it to be. Your marriage is not what you hoped for. Motherhood is harder than you imagined, and you've lost yourself somewhere in the mix of responsibilities. Well, if you're ready to bring some more peace and joy into your life, reconnect with God who made you, and start living a life you love, then grab your cup of coffee or tea and let's dive into today's show.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Business of Inner Peace. So excited that you're here. Today, I want to talk about the concept of walking on eggshells. I think that's a pretty common term, and you all can understand exactly what it means and what I'm talking about. But just in case you're like from a different culture and you're like, what does this even mean? It's that feeling you get when you are with someone and you feel like you have to be really, really careful about what you say or what you do because it could set the other person off. And what I mean by that is it could actually create an uncomfortable situation where maybe there's an argument or you don't feel safe, someone raising their voice or, getting really angry. But it could also just be like the dynamic that it sets off. It could be causing that other person to maybe like stop talking to you, to start stonewalling you. It could just be like that person shuts down. It really could be any kind of a behavior or action that makes you feel uncomfortable. It doesn't even have to be a behavior or action that would be perceived by someone else as uncomfortable or dangerous or anything like that. It could just be something that makes you uncomfortable. And so in order to avoid that really uncomfortable, potentially even dangerous thing, we quote unquote walk on eggshells, because eggshells are obviously really delicate, right? You'd have to tread very lightly to not break them all apart. And that's where that saying comes from, because you are literally treading so lightly. You're so hyper aware of everything that you're saying and doing because you just don't want to set off a bomb, so to speak. And this is how I lived so much of not just my marriage. I can see it really easily in my marriage, but actually my life. I had a mom that I walked on eggshells with because I never knew what version of my mom I was going to get. Was she the mom that was in her manic mode, meaning she was super happy and hyper and energetic and enthusiastic? She was a really fun mom to be with. Or was she my mom that was going to be really depressed, doing nothing, laying there on the couch? Or she could be angry mom. And angry mom was really not fun to be around. Slamming cupboards, push you out of the way, not talking to you, really short with you. You definitely felt like you were in trouble. So I can see now, looking back, that this right here was part of my subconscious programming. It actually felt safe to my whole system to live a life where I was walking on eggshells. When I say safe, I mean my subconscious took the data and it knew I can survive, right? Your subconscious purpose is to keep you alive and well. So it knew that I could survive walking on eggshells, which then gets programmed into your body as quote unquote safe. Not safe with the conscious mind, right? Safe with the subconscious mind. And so my subconscious said, okay, we know we can survive this. Let's put it on repeat and just keep doing it for the rest of your life. And that's what I did until I actually became aware of my subconscious programming and began to do the work to change all of this and to rewire it, which is what I love because I have seen it change not just my life, but so many lives of the women that have come through my program, of even women that are my peers that I've done programs with. Like, identifying your subconscious programming and rewiring it is everything. It's gold. It's just amazing. And so what I have noticed, a commonality between the women that I work with and myself, was they come forward a lot saying, I just feel like I'm walking on eggshells. And if you can relate to that at all, I want you to understand today that this is a little red flag waving at you. It could be from your subconscious programming, not necessarily, but it's a huge red flag waving at you that you are in fight, flight, or freeze mode, which essentially is in the back of your brain where adrenaline, right? It's a survival mode. Adrenaline is getting pumped into your body really needlessly because you are not actually dealing with a threat of your life, right? You might not be fighting off like a mountain lion or dealing with an emergency situation, but your brain does not understand that. So once you go into that mode of fight, flight, or freeze, which guess what? If you're walking on eggshells, you definitely are in that mode, then your body is needlessly pumping a level of adrenaline into you, and you can have fatigue, right? You can have adrenaline overload because we're really not meant to function for long periods of time in that state. But when you're in this fight, flight, or freeze, when you're in this space of walking on eggshells, that's what is going on. And remember, I'm sure you've heard me say it before, if that part of your brain is where you're functioning from, where the fear is, you can't access the frontal cortex of your brain. You can't access logic, reasoning, decision-making, because your brain is all awash with the adrenaline. And in that phase, all you can do is to be told what to do, right? When you're in that back of your brain, which is the primal brain, you can only respond to directions. And so this can start to make sense for yourself or someone else when you understand if they're in an abusive relationship, right? And their brain is often in this primal brain. It's often in the fight, flight, or freeze. And so they can't access that front part of their brain. They can't make good logical decisions, right? Because all they can do is to respond to whatever they're being told to do. And they usually are quite compliant, quite obedient. I want you to think even about society with this. Whenever society collectively, right, gets into fear mode, which we've seen a lot of in the past few years dealing with a pandemic and all of that, they lose their ability to have logical, analytical, reasoning thoughts. They cannot access the front part of their brain, their critical mind. They can only function out of the primal brain, which is they just respond and they can only do what they're told to do. So if you ever kind of wondered, how did that work, that society, like this huge collective, just went straight to obedience and just did what the authorities were telling us to do? It was because we were in a huge state of fear. We were in the primal brain collectively, not every single person, but collectively. And that's why the majority was willing to comply. So I want to bring this up because if you can just start paying attention to that feeling of feeling like you're walking on eggshells, I'm sure we've all experienced it every now and then, but if it's like a super regular part of your life, especially of your relationship, and you can start to recognize a pattern happening, I want you to, one, realize what's going on in your brain and in your body, right? Two, start thinking on this could be a sign that you are in an abusive pattern in your relationship and you might not even realize it. Because what happens for all of us that are very familiar with the abuse wheel is you start off, right, really just head over heels, falling in love with someone, and you're getting the happy hormone then, which is cortisol, right?
Hey friends, I hate to interrupt this podcast episode, but the day that I recorded this, I was definitely having a bit of a brain fog, and I wanted to clarify some of the words that I'm using here because they were incorrect. Cortisol is actually a stress hormone, and it's what's released in our body when we're experiencing stress. And what I meant to say is oxytocin. Oxytocin is the happy love hormone. So as you continue to listen to this episode, every time you hear me say cortisol, replace it with oxytocin. I'm so sorry that I misspoke, but I didn't want to re-record the entire episode, and I knew that you'd be willing to offer me grace.
And you're just giddy and everything's joyful. We get this hormone with a lot when we have a newborn baby. Actually, cortisol gets released even with breastfeeding, even just by, it's been documented with the mom just staring at her newborn baby, the sleeping newborn baby, cortisol is getting released into the body. So it's that yummy, yummy, happy hormone. It's the love hormone. We get it a lot with love and new relationships. And then when you transition and something in your relationship happens where there's a fight, an emergency, I don't know, anything that's making you uncomfortable, right? That can trigger you into the fight, flight, or freeze. So now you've got a bunch of adrenaline going. You're in that primal brain. When you finally kind of allow the brain to calm down, what usually happens if you're in a pattern of abuse, whoever was the abuser, they now are feeling really remorseful and they just want to get you back, right? And so they start doing things like maybe flowers, chocolate, some kind of a gift, a love note, really kind words, right? Which what that does for you is it now starts releasing a new hormone and a new neurotransmitter called dopamine. And you're getting a dopamine hit from that, which again, it's a good hormone. We all need dopamine, but we need to pay attention to where our dopamine is coming from, because it could be a very unhealthy pattern or an unhealthy source. So you get your dopamine, right? And now you're moving back towards potentially getting some more cortisol if things are going smooth and you're feeling lovey-dovey again, and then the pattern resets. And sooner or later, you end back with a trigger, a situation, something happens, you're back in fight, flight, or freeze, back in primal brain. And once it's happened once or twice, right between that dopamine, potentially cortisol being released, is where you start to live in the walking on eggshells mode. So when the pattern has happened enough, your body starts to build up a level of fear around the bad thing happening again. And so before anything bad has even happened, you are actually living in that primal brain because you're walking on eggshells. And I just am talking about all of this today because I want you to recognize, one, a little red flag here, that you're probably living too much in this adrenaline mode. It's not good for your body. Second is, if it's happening a lot, you're probably having a pattern of abuse within the relationship as well. And third, just to see, is there a program happening here? Like, can you find other places in life where this happened? Kind of like I gave you the example with me at the beginning of, it wasn't just in my marriage that this cycle was happening. It also was happening in my childhood. And so these are all key elements. Just our first step, right? I think you've heard this before in other places. The first step is awareness. You just need to be aware that it's happening. The second step is to begin to identify exactly what's going on, whether it's abuse or it's a subconscious program. And then step 3 is the rewiring and the healing, right? And if you're in an abusive situation, it's actually taking the right steps to make sure that you're safe. And guess what? I'm a professional at all of these. Not just because I've lived it and done it for myself, but because I actually know how to help and support other women with this same exact thing. And so I really just want to encourage you today. If any of this just had like little ding, 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 ding going off in your head, or like, oh my gosh, that's me, or you're just starting to recognize it, book a call with me. It's ErinJeanBooking.com. The call is free and there's no obligation. But on this call, we are going to give you a blueprint for what's actually happening in your relationship. I'm going to help you have some eyes on it, reflect to you what's going on so that we can assess. And then I can point you towards a resource that will be helpful for you for your next step. So it's a very personalized phone call. And I'm here to support you all the way. And I just want you to know I have heard so many stories. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of, any kind of judgment coming from me, because I just want you to know you're in a safe space. I've heard it all, from infidelity to abuse and all kinds of things. So I just want to be a support to you. I truly feel deep down in my heart, this is the work that God has called me to do. It's what He made me for. And because of that, it really does fill my heart with joy to get to do it. So I hope you have found something helpful here today as we've talked about this concept of walking on eggshells. Maybe you learned something new. I would love, love, love to hear from you if you've had any sort of aha moment through any part of this episode. All right, my friend, go out and make it a great day.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you're feeling blessed by the content here, the number one way you can show me is by leaving me a written review of the show. I'd be forever grateful. Knowing that you're out there listening helps me know that I'm truly living out God's purpose in my life. The other thing you can do is take a screenshot of this episode, share it with a friend, or better yet, tag me on your Instagram stories. Remember, you are seen, known, and loved. May God richly bless you today. All my love, ErinJean.